Welcome, you all. I am Baron Baptiste. Welcome to Disrupt the Drift, where this is a place where we can tell the truth and the truth can be told. David Masters, good to be with you.
As always, my friend, it is great to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk today about what it is to be persecuted. We see persecution happening all over the world, from the ground level, everyday people being persecuted for the right or wrong reasons, people being persecuted from the top up in politics, in anyone who has any kind of success in life. You're just seeing this world of cancel culture, censorship culture. You're seeing people being attacked all over the place. The world is divided. People are being divided. And a lot of it happens through persecution. What do you say about this? It's such a real thing in the world we live in now. What do you see, David?
The possibility or the likelihood of each of us being persecuted at some point and possibly at many times throughout the course of our life is very real. And then it goes to the question, why are you being persecuted if you are? And are they the right or wrong reasons?
And now say more about that.
Okay, so the right reasons would be that you have a belief about something and you take a stand for that belief, whatever it may be. And then the dung beetle crowd that's out there rolling around in their dung doesn't like the fact that you stand apart from that crowd, and they come after you and they want to try to tear you down and destroy you and demoralize you in any way.
Make an example of you.
Yeah, make an example of you.
Shut you up.
See it every
you either
single
agree
day
with them or you are a target. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the flip side of that is the wrong reasons. And so the cancel culture is a perfect example of being persecuted for the wrong reasons. Cultural appropriation. Hello? Cultures are cultures that integrate into every aspect of society. And so if you start teaching whatever it is, yoga, there are people that are going to say, well, that's cultural appropriation. You can't do that. It's a territory that's exclusive to the original owners of the idea. That's nonsense.
Yeah, or you wear a Mexican sombrero, or I saw something, it was interesting. I saw something on YouTube a while back where there was this guy he went on some college campuses, and he would show them a video on his phone, and it was a white person dressed up in a Mexican costume. And he went to different college on the campus. They're asking students, what do you think of this? Is this appropriation? They're like, yes, that's racist. That's awful. That's terrible. And then the guy, so there was a lot of that on these college campuses. Then he went into like the Mexican district. I think he was like in the Mission District of San Francisco. Then he went to LA and he was like, went into the Mexican culture, and he's showing the same video to Mexican people saying, do you think this is racist? Do you think? They're like, no, that's fun. Like literally across the board, the Mexican people were like, no, it's awesome. But it's all these like white, progressive, woke people that are claiming appropriation. It has nothing to do with their lives. They're idiot ideologues. It's ideology. They've been somehow they've been enrolled into some kind of ideology that and has nothing to do with their lives. And then they call out others. Then they get into the call out cancel culture. And we're living in a world where you can't do anything without getting called out. But if you're doing something right in life and you put your neck out, you're at issue with status quo somehow, you stick your neck out. Yeah, they're coming for you. They'll likely persecute you. Right. And it could be for the right. So there's a right reasons to be persecuted. You see the examples of a Jesus or different figures in history, Socrates, Gandhi's, that have been persecuted for being a stand for something, a possibility that's for humanity. But then you get people persecuted for the wrong reasons, and then sometimes it's justified, right? But call out culture nowadays, cancel culture, will jump on you typically if you're doing the right things. But when it comes to calling people out who are doing the wrong things, unless if it's really like a Jeffrey Epstein or a, what's that Hollywood film producer Weinstein or those types, right?
Yeah.
Then okay. But you see the bigger persecution these days is going after people who are doing the right thing.
Well,
or attempting to. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But they'll look for any kind of mistakes, any missteps, anything that they can jump on, but then they lie about it. They'll lie about you. People will say things about you that aren't true because they want to be right in their unjustified righteousness kind of thing.
It's interesting that you say that, because there are basically three kinds of people in the world. Those kind of people who try to find a way of lifting others up. Then there's the neutral people in the middle who basically look at everybody and go, I don't care. I'm only out on this for myself. I want to take care of number one. And then there's the other side of that is people who want to bring everybody down to where they are for whatever reason. So
envy, maybe.
Who knows
at the
what
end
the
of the day,
motivation of a dark
envy,
spirited person.
Jealousy, just tear down. There are people who just tear down.
But you see, those kind of people are the ones that weaponize ideas. And for example, I'm looking at the story of Barabbas. You remember the story of Barabbas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus
Who
and
was
Barabbas
right?
at the trial of Jesus before he was crucified.
So for people who are not familiar with that, it's a very interesting story. And just a quick line here. It says, Barabbas was a revolutionary who directly challenged Roman rule. And from a Roman point of view, Jesus, his claim to being the king of the Jews, posed a threat to Caesar. So you see, here we have two diametrically opposed people. One was a revolutionary trying to literally killing people. He was a very dangerous person, Barabbas was. Here's Jesus trying to lift people up. Here's Barabbas trying to bring people down. But the interesting story behind that is when it came time to free a prisoner, and by the way, Pontius Pilate wanted to free Jesus, and his wife was a Jesus believer.
Pontius Pilate was the Roman.
He was the magistrate
in charge.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the idea was when they brought Jesus
Where was
out,
that? Where was that story?
I believe it happened
somewhere
in Jerusalem, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But the idea is when they brought him out and they said, who do you want? They brought out the worst possible prisoner and the best possible person.
Violent, criminal, revolutionary.
Behind the scenes was there was somebody who was opposed to Jesus who went around and he paid a number of people, agitators, to say, give us Barabbas. It was one of his friends, I think, Barabbas's friends, that they wanted him free so he could come out and continue opposing the Roman rule. Do you see what happened there?
And then they spread their propaganda.
That's right.
About Jesus.
That's right.
And then the crowd is easily manipulated. The group think right there.
Yeah.
They get on board and they're unwilling. What's that called? Unwilling dupes.
Yeah.
Like they're being used. They're being duped.
Well,
and they're not thinking for themselves to just see reality, to be able to distinguish a criminal from someone who's carrying the light.
But the thing is, though, is that Matthias Desmet wrote a book about mass formation psychosis. And it does occur. It happened with the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda. 800,000 people started slashing each other with machetes because of it was a radio broadcast that encouraged people to go out and kill their opponents. But see, in our world, we do it with innuendo. We do it with slander. We do it with backbiting and rumors. And the cancel culture is nothing but a rumor mill.
It's a rumor mill.
It starts a lie, and that lie takes on a life of its own.
It just spins out, expands out into a whole narrative, and it creates a perception shell around a person.
That's it.
And it might be the listeners right here. This might be you. Right? People create a perception shell around you, meaning people spread gossip. If someone is in the background telling people that you have gonorrhea, and they're telling that, whispering into everybody's ear, oh, he or she's got gonorrhea. And then you walk into a room with all those people those people have now a perception of you, right? It creates a perception shell, we'll call it, a point of view. And now people see you through that view, whether true or not. You don't have gonorrhea, but regardless, people take on these narratives, these stories about you, and they live it and see it as true, even though it's based in nothing. It's purely made up. It's propaganda.
There's an interesting principle at work in that. And that is that it's easier to believe a lie than it is to believe the truth.
Why is that?
Because, I'll wax philosophical here for a moment. Going back to the original fall of man, it was a lie that brought down the first couple. It was a lie about whether or not they could eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And that lie began a domino effect, and it's actually genetically embedded in us, strangely enough, throughout the many thousands of years that the human race has existed as we know it. And so there's a leaning toward being more susceptible to misinformation or disinformation. And by the way, we hear those words bandied about quite a bit. That's just misinformation. And so the idea that something is a lie is also weaponized, because they can take a lie and call it a truth and then say to you, if you don't believe this, there's something wrong with you. And that's called gaslighting. We have that going on all day long, every day.
Yeah. And then they get agreement for it, because the people who are either tear down people, or the people who have some grudge toward you or some envy of you,
it's what they want to
pile
believe.
on. It's a dog pile at that point. Everybody's and on social media, it's super easy for that to happen, where suddenly the grievance culture, people start showing up, piling on with their little hits. But it's usually fluff. It's gossip. It's not based in reality.
But why does it take hold
but
so deeply?
Let me say, the person listening, I'm speaking to the person wearing your shirt right now, the person wearing your pants, or that's wearing that pair of pants right now, the person listening, how many lies have you bought in? And then some time passes and you realize, oh, I was manipulated. I was lied to. I was living in this weird perception of some kind of lie, that someone deceived you, someone betrayed you. And then it's a shock. It's like a shock and awe to your system when you discover it. But then the second part that I want to ask is, what lies are you living in now? What lies are here for you that you're living out, lies that you're living out as truth, and you're blind? You don't see it. You don't know it. And you don't know that you don't know it. But it's a time to wake up. Wake up and smell the truth. Take a big whiff. Inhale.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. And the idea here is that there are many people who have tried thinking for themselves, or at least they believed they were thinking for themselves, but then they found out that they were wrong. And then what happens is, if that happens a number of times, too many times, after a while you don't trust yourself. Then you lean into what other people say, and that becomes a mass formation psychosis. In other words, you don't trust your own thinking. You've tried it. It's failed. People do it with investing and relationships, and they believe what they want to believe about the other person. They find out later on that person wasn't what they presented themselves to be. So then you start to believe what other people, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? You start looking for somebody to give you your confirmation bias, to fulfill that confirmation bias, because you're looking for an answer that comes from somebody else, and there's no responsibility in that.
Yeah.
So what you have to do, you have to back up and become objective. You and I talk about this ad nausea.
Yeah.
You got to be objective. You got to step back and look at your own thinking and realize, I realized when I was a kid, I realized when I was 21 years old that my thinking was full of holes, that I really didn't know what I was thinking. Now, that didn't make me want to think for myself. I did want to think for myself. But I also had to look at myself and say, am I being objective? Can I see this clearly? Then you go to other people and you look for the truth. And the truth is going to have to resonate with you.
See reality and start trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And often what you can't see it. Someone's lying to you, someone's manipulating you, and you can't see it because the way it's being presented is either so moral high ground or the right way or compassionate or but what they're saying and who they're being, it doesn't match. Something doesn't match up. Something isn't congruent. Something isn't authentic, and you can't see it because the front there is so convincing. But when you pause and you start trusting yourself, you don't have to see it. You trust your inner seeing, your insight, right? Inner sight. And you just know, I don't have to know exactly what's going on here, but something doesn't smell right. Something doesn't measure up here. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to trust my intuition and the light that's being revealed to me right here. Yeah. And then I have a question. And this is a question for you, David. And to me, it's the elephant in the room in this conversation is pride. So where does pride play into this? And I'll say what I mean by that is, and then I want to hear your response, but there's something about pride that when someone has been conned or scammed, or they realize they're being lied to, we don't want to fess up to that. It's actually because it's embarrassing, or it's an assault on our pride, our ego, because suddenly we have to admit we were wrong. And then the embarrassment that could come out of it, just embarrassment within yourself. Or if you have a big fat ego, you don't want to admit that you were wrong or mistaken. And so you'll go along. I want to hear your response. Yeah.
Look, pride is a corrupted word because it's been turned around to be presented as something very positive. Look, I have pride. I have pride in who I am. I take pride in what I do. It's a corrupted word. And in the scripture, it says, pride goeth before the fall. Now, pride is a multifaceted concept, but what it does is, it feeds back into this self-fulfilling prophecy, confirmation bias loop that pride tells you what you want to hear. You're going to be great. You can't make any mistakes. Whatever you feel like doing, do it. That's pride. It's a feedback loop from hell, to be honest with you. And it always happens. It always goes before the fall.
And where does it play into this, like buying into lies?
I got a perfect example.
And glossing over that. When you sense something's off, you don't trust yourself, but partly you don't trust yourself because your pride, your ego is running the show.
And again, I love this saying. I heard somebody say it 30 years ago. Wherever ego, I go. The ego drags you around like a dog on a leash because the ego is that self-fulfilling prophecy, the loop of confirmation bias. And I'll give you a perfect example of that, which is everybody is probably familiar with Sam Bankman-Fried. That's the young guy.
The crypto guy.
The crypto guy. He built people of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
He was just sentenced to 25 years in prison, by the way, back in March.
Good.
It's funny how many high-level people got sucked in to this whole scam.
Yeah.
Did they suspect that there was something wrong? I don't think they did. As a matter of fact, we usually, if pride is operating in us, pride tells you, look, there's a lot of money to be made there. There's something in it for you.
You want it too badly.
You want it.
Some kind of shortcut, some kind of hack.
Yep.
And there's so much agreement around that guy. You have all these celebrities, the Tom Bradys and the big political figures and experts on whatever, CNN and MSNBCs, and then all saying, oh, this guy is the new Einstein of crypto. And this guy is, but there's all that agreement. There's a perception shell created around him. And then you feed that into your pride of wanting that hack, that easy money. So you want it too bad. And then between the narrative and that agreement, and then that inner desire that people have, that greed, that whatever you want to call it, they buy in. Yeah. And then they discover after the fact, the guy, it's a total fraud. It's a con. It's a total con. Well, and that was very obvious, but it's always not so obvious. Like you have to, I think what we're speaking to here is get present, wake up, open your eyes, find your feet, pause, and are things really lining up? And do you want something too badly? You want it too badly that you are blinded.
But I would say this, you don't have to want it that much at all. And so all it has to do is appeal to you. And I got to go back to the Garden of Eden. Look, you see that fruit? Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. You go ahead and have that because you know what? Whoever told you not to eat that fruit doesn't want you to know what they know. All it has to do is appeal to a part of you that says, oh, there's an advantage there for me. There's something in that for me. Okay, I guess I'll give that a try. How many people have said, I'll give it a try? Did you ever see the movie The Lost Boys?
No.
Okay, so this family moves into this town of vampires. And the vampires are running the town, right? And this family has no idea that they're in this town of vampires. But the only way that the vampires can get to them is through their permission. So the head of the vampire clan comes over and visits this little family all the time. And he makes friends with the mom of these two boys who really have a sense that there's something really wrong with this town. And finally, they figure out that the only way that he can get to them is to get their permission to become involved with them. And that's a perfect principle.
He's on that PR campaign.
He's
right?
on the PR campaign.
The con person.
He's presentable.
Becoming
he's
your
nice.
friend, becoming like getting everybody around you to like him. Now there's some agreement for, oh, this is a good guy. You can trust him.
Yeah.
But if any of those people, and I bet there were some people that didn't trust that, didn't trust him.
The two boys the mom was like trying to make friends with everybody in the town, and here's the vampire that shows up. The idea is that vampires
the boys didn't buy it.
No,
her two boys. Were they young boys?
They were sort of teenagers, yeah.
Yeah. So they're still connected. They're not as gullible, right? And they're like, no, something ain't right with this guy.
But see, evil,
but we don't trust that.
Let me tell you something. This is one of the most important principles that anybody can understand. Evil has to gain your permission in order to get involved with you and then ultimately own you. Without your permission, it has to stay outside of the realm of controlling you.
Yeah.
Whatever form of evil it is. And this is the reason why things have been weaponized. There's a problem with obesity in our country. Look at how delicious the foods are. I'm a type 2 diabetic. It's easy for me to come home and want to eat a big bowl of ice cream, but that's not good for me, and it never was. But you see how it's weaponized. This is so good. How can you resist it? And then there's the
people
evil.
Lined up at the ice cream shops, and everybody else is doing it. And that's in the ego. It just feeds right into what you want, what appeals to you.
What appeals to you?
When I was in my early 20s, I just moved to Los Angeles. I was living in Hollywood, and I was sitting out. I had this little apartment, little studio I rented. It was like $500 a month, and I had no money at that time in my life. I was waiting tables. I was basically waiting tables is all I was doing at that point. I just moved there, so just got a job. I had no money. I could barely pay that $500 a month rent. But here's my point. One day I was sitting, it was a beautiful day. I pulled out a lawn chair. I was sitting out on the lawn right in front of my studio apartment on the street. And this man, really well-dressed, spoken man walks up. Good looking, like he seemed like just a straight shooter, like nothing, didn't seem suspicious. I was in my early 20s and he was probably in his mid 40s, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Sir," he said, "I just ran into some car problems and I need $50. I just need $50. I forget what he said now, but like why he needed the $50. It was like for gas or some part for the car. And there was an auto shop up the street that had the part. And he was so convincing. And I was young and naive and wanting to just help. So I gave him $50. Oh, this is what he said. He said, "I'll be back by 5 p.m. and give you the money back. I just need to get my car working so I can get home. I'll come right back. I'll be back by 5 p.m. I said, "Great, I'll be here." I gave him $50. Okay, so fast forward, 5 p.m. comes along, the guy's not around. Then that evening, he's not around, and it was eating at me because that $50 was like all the money I had to my name at that point. Like literally, it was all I had. I happened to have it in cash, but it was all I had. And I gave it to, and so it was eating at me because that $50 was a big deal to me. Yeah. And I trusted this guy. Fast forward that night, nothing happens. Next day, nothing happens. Now we're like 4 or 5 days. The guy's gone. And I'm like, wow, I got conned. I totally got conned. So about a week later, I show up to, I was working in a restaurant in Brentwood, and I show up, it was to work. And as I'm walking in, guess who's standing right? He was just outside of the restaurant. It's that guy. And I was living in Hollywood. Brentwood is across town. So way on the other side of town. What are the odds? There's that guy right there. And I walk right up to him and I said, I want my $50. Where's my money? And he said, he pretended like he didn't know me or knew who I was. Yeah, he's, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know you. And I said, I want my money now. And he was holding a briefcase, and I pulled the briefcase out of his hand. And I said, until I get my $50, I'm keeping this. And the guy was just acted all angry because I don't know who you are. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call the police. I said, because you stole from me. So and then I take his briefcase, I go into work and the guy shows, I'm like, I come from the back kitchen area. He's standing at the front door and he's got $50 in his hand.
Wow.
And I get his briefcase and I walk over to him and we do the exchange. But I was like, wow, I got conned. And this guy was so convincing. Like I was bought in. But I learned something from that. I was like, okay, Baron, pause. When someone's pitching you, someone's on a PR campaign, people are dogpiling on about someone being an awful person. I don't buy into it. I need receipts. I need to see evidence.
Yeah.
What's the truth here? Just because a bunch of people are saying something doesn't make it true. If they're saying something about you, people listening, or they're saying something about someone in your life, pause, get present. Don't be gullible or easily to buy in to what's being presented to you. Get present and get underneath enough to know and your sense and connect to your conscience, your gut. All right. Any last words? A good point to wrap up here.
I think you nailed it, man. It's just step back, learn to be objective, get into a nice meditative state a couple times a day, clear your mind. Where I'm working right now, I'm teaching all the people how to get present, and it only takes 15 seconds, and they're blown away.
Yeah.
Because they're
just everyday people, right?
They're just everyday people that have no idea.
It's not like a personal development or a spiritual development environment. It's like a professional organization. Yeah, it's a
professional, but when I see people have stress, I go, hey, you want to de-stress real quick? I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah. Real quick, what are you showing them?
It's the pink elephant. And what I tell people, and please don't do this while you're driving, I say, close your eyes, visualize a pink elephant. Do you see it? Okay. Now, focus your attention down your arm into your fingers and just be aware of your fingers. First your thumb, then your finger, then your next finger. And I do that for just about 30 seconds. I say, now what happened to the pink elephant? Well, it's gone. I said, that's because you just cleared your mind.
You just got out of your head.
This young woman
you paused,
yesterday.
You dropped into your body.
Yeah.
You fell awake.
I feel it. The first time I feel this.
Yeah.
It's a revelation when you can control your mind.
It diffuses you from that pink elephant in your head, that story in your head, the drama in your head.
That's right.
The groupthink, what you've taken on, the lies in your head. I think it was Don Miguel Ruiz. I think he's an author, but he said people are deceiving themselves all of the time.
All day long.
And so are you. And you just need to know if you're deceiving yourself all of the time, you just want to know others are deceiving themselves all of the time.
Yeah.
And knowing that, don't believe anyone. including yourself.
That's right.
All right, my friend. You all, thank you for getting to this far in the show. Please share the show. We grow the show through you sharing it. Subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe, and so you get notified when we drop these twice a week. And if you're watching on YouTube, we drop on YouTube twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at Disrupt the Drift channel on YouTube, Disrupt the Drift. If you have questions that you would like us to respond to on the show, send them to disruptingthedrift@baronbaptiste.com, disruptingthedrift@baronbaptiste.com. Till next time, keep disrupting the drift, stay true, and peace be with you.